Okay, here we go. So again, welcome. My name is Bella Kavicki. I use she, her, hers, and I am the CERJ events manager. So I've been the one kind of coordinating. You've received an email from me. And I'm so excited to introduce other people on the editorial board, go through the process of submitting and publishing with us for volume 9 this year. It should take about half an hour, 45 minutes. We have the whole hour blocked and we'll finish off with the Q&A. I think that's it. So my first slide kind of just goes over our time together. So like I was just saying, I'll give an introduction to the journal, what we're all about, why you might want to submit to CERJ this year, a little overview of the submission and editorial process so we can go into the nitty-gritty of that. Then, and I actually think Lily just hopped on the call, which is exciting. We have a speaker from last year's volume 8, who is able to join us and speak about her experience a little bit, give a different perspective from the submission and editorial side. Then we did receive a few questions in advance, so we'll answer those and then we'll engage in like a little Q&A, whether you want to throw your questions in the chat, ask them aloud. We'll make sure to get to them all. That said, you don't have to save them to the end. If something pops up and you want to throw it in the chat throughout the presentation, please feel free to do so. Alrighty then, so with that said, I'm joined tonight by a few CERJ editorial board members, myself being one, but I'm going to pass it actually over to Yamna to introduce herself and then we'll go to Kate.
Thank you so much. Hi, Bella, and just echoing Bella's warm welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And it's great to see that we do have people from all over. So that's nice. I'm Yomna. I'm the editor-in-chief of CERJ, which is super exciting. I'm a PhD student at the Faculty of Education in Cambridge, and my research focuses on refugees with disabilities. And yeah, just super excited to be working with this fantastic team this year and looking forward to meeting you all throughout the event. Thank you, Bella.
Awesome, thanks Yamna, and then Kate.
Hi everyone. Yeah, thanks Bella. My name's Kate Poteet. I'm doing my master's in education, globalization, and international development here at Cambridge, and I'm the deputy editor of CERJ. So my research focuses on girls' education in Afghanistan, and I'm really excited to see what everybody else is doing in the submissions.
Awesome. And we're joined by two wonderful other students at Cambridge who couldn't make it tonight. But Jian is our business manager and Emma is our communications officer. And so they deal with the funding and the social media respectively. And you'll see their work displayed and honored throughout. But that makes up us on the editorial board side. But you might be wondering a little bit about the journal itself, how it started and so on. So I like to just give the elevator pitch, which is that we are a graduate-led initiative. So we are student-run, based out of the Faculty of Education at Cambridge. So we are all Cambridge students, but by no means is this a Cambridge-only journal. So we are so excited to see actually folks from outside of Cambridge joining us tonight. And we hope that you do consider submitting. It excites us to kind of grow this community beyond just the walls of Cambridge, and to make it a truly international representation. We are also, fun fact, an open access journal, which is very exciting and it kind of aligns with our mission of accessibility. So if you want to read more a bit about how we were founded, we had a name change a few years ago. If that interests you at all, we do have a pretty thorough website that I'm going to ask Yamna or Kate to throw in the chat if you want to take a look later on or now during the session. So that's there, but also to go over some of our goals, because I really do think CERJ kind of exists as a platform for first-time authors and reviewers. And so at the heart of our mission is a lot of learning. And so perhaps you're kind of new to the publishing process, you're considering applying to a journal for the first time, we hope to be here for you for that. So that is priority number 1, which is supporting first-time authors, researchers, reviewers into the publication world. And to that end, we also want to help you with the promotion of your work. So if you go through this process and you end up in the final product, we will be there for you to celebrate the exciting work and research you're doing, and also help you understand like how to best share it, get the word out about the research and the exciting research that you're doing. And I think kind of going hand in hand with that is this facilitation of ideas. Kate, I think you just said it. It's just like exciting to see what everyone is doing, right? So I think the beauty of a journal like this, the beauty of working with others, whether it's another author, engaging in the peer review process, is that you have, you're building this community and engaging in conversation. And I think that is really powerful across institutions. So hopefully that's exciting to you. It's exciting to me. And another goal of ours is to promote research diversity. We'll get to that in just a few minutes, but we care a lot about like challenging what is research or what can be considered research, and want to promote innovative methods, whether that's practice-based work, arts-based research, consider what is traditionally published, and maybe you want to challenge that as well. So we do promote a diversity in the articles that we publish. And of course, I like to end on this note too, because I think sometimes when you think about student-led processes, or I guess not us as educators, I hope, in the world of education, but sometimes there can be like a stigma of like, oh, it's easier to perhaps get published. And I do think there's truth in that we want to be accessible and supportive, but we also hold ourselves to really high standards. And so hopefully by engaging in the submission process, it is our hope and our goal, and hopefully you find this out as well, that you'll be well prepared to promote or to submit to any other educational journal. So that's that. That is the 5 minutes and a 5-minute introduction to CERJ. As I was saying, if you have any questions, we do have our website, which you can check out. Ask questions in the chat now or hold them for the end. All right, so you might now also be asking, like, how could this help me? How does this apply to me in my research? So to give an overview of that, I think submitting is a great opportunity. I can't highlight this enough, to experience the publishing process. So you're going to submit. We have a peer review process in which someone else will read your work, provide revisions or recommendations for you to consider and to incorporate into the piece. Then you do that again. And then you engage in the publishing process in terms of doing like final editing, having it launched to the world. So it's really from beginning to end, you will be involved the full way. And again, as I was saying earlier, it is a communal process. I think that's part of, maybe it feels really independent when you're writing it or when you're doing your research, but certainly in the publishing process, we do try to make it a mutual beneficial exchange of ideas and of work. So as just as you have peer reviewers looking at your work, and you might gain stuff from that conversation, hopefully you are also teaching them by sharing your research with the world and with others with overlap in your field. So a lot of I guess a dialogue, we're building a dialogue through this process, and I think that is rather exciting. You might also realize that by publishing, you can raise the profile of your work, and especially as you're an open access journal, that means more eyes can read your paper and make use of it. And I think I have no doubt that there's a lot of innovative and important work happening that you'll share with us. And so I think it's really cool that you can spread it widely and share it widely. And then of course you engage with the wider community. So I've been talking a lot about like the peer reviewers working with us as a board, but you also have just the CERJ readership, and that can raise the profile of your work, but also be really gratifying, I think, as an early career researcher or academic. So moving swiftly along, my last reminder of the night, or I'll just keep saying it because it's so true, we do care a lot about making this representative of the educational research community at large, and not just a University of Cambridge publication. And so while we are all Cambridge students, again, by no means necessary do you need to be a Cambridge student to submit your work. We are excited about a range of experiences, a range of methods, a range of topics, and a range of institutions. So we truly want to just highlight everything that we can, whether you're a graduate student, a doctoral student, an early career practitioner. If your research sounds exciting and you're excited to submit to us, please do. Great. Oh, Yamna and Kate, I feel like I just kept talking. Do you want to add anything about the journal or kind of our mission and goals?
I don't have anything to add right now, Bella. You've summed everything up perfectly.
Amazing. Lovely, lovely.
Yeah, I think that's great. One question that we got last time about accessibility was whether it even costs anything to submit to our journal. So I think it's important to highlight that it doesn't, and that is in an effort to help early career researchers get their research out there. So it's completely free, no stakes to submit.
Yes, Kate, I think you said it so well. It's like you got nothing to lose. If you have something, submit it. It's great. Um, and I think that leads nicely into this next question of like, what can you submit? And I want to start by prefacing this with that there are more details about each of these bullet points on our submission guidelines, which is a page on our website that you'll have to access anyways when you're preparing your submission. But to give a quick overview, we take a lot. We take research notes going up to 3,000 words, and those can be on any topic. We take critical reviews and literature reviews, again, a wide word count range. We take full research papers, and we also take conference papers or conference submissions. I know at Cambridge there is an educational conference called Kaleidoscope, and so maybe you've prepared something for that or another conference that you can submit as well. And I was saying this yesterday, but I think sometimes in our own work and research, it can feel limiting to look at a bulleted list and not know exactly where your submission might lie. But do know that we are totally open to challenging different methods, challenging different products and forms of academic research and academic publications. So maybe it overlaps a few of these or is still taking shape. Please do not be intimidated if you're not entirely positive quite yet, and consider submitting either way. And Kate and Yamna, you might have, oh, thank you, Yana, you already put in the chat. So again, if you want to read about those in any more detail, you can find those on our website. All right, terrific. I'm going to this is our last slide, and then I'm going to turn it over to our guest speaker of the evening. And Yamna, I think you explained this so well yesterday, actually. So can I actually give the floor to you to maybe run through the editorial process?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Bella. Okay, so it's great that we have this graphic, so it can serve as a reminder to me as well as I'm talking, so brilliant. So first step is submission of manuscripts. So the deadline for submissions is the 18th of April. And this would be like a full manuscript. We ask authors to submit 2 versions, a fully anonymized version and a version that does name them as authors. The reason we ask for 2 versions is because the version that names you as authors and so on, that's how it would be published if your manuscript is accepted. And the version that's anonymized is the one that goes to peer reviewers. So it basically saves us having to do the work of anonymizing and all that. So that's why we ask for 2 manuscripts. Once we receive the submissions, the next step is for us to do a kind of desk review. So this is done by the editors. Each manuscript is reviewed by 2 editors. And at this stage, it's really just a kind of desk accept or reject. So to explain this a little bit more, the editors aren't looking at the content knowledge or expertise. It's mainly checking that the submission aligns with the submission guidelines, that it's of a high enough quality, that it basically, it makes sense, it's logical. At this stage, it's possible that we would send the manuscript back to the author and ask them to make some changes, but most likely at this stage, it's either an accept or a reject. After this stage, your manuscript would get sent to 2 peer reviewers. So your article is matched with peer reviewers based on content knowledge and expertise. So they would be people who are experts in your topic in one way or another. It might be that they overlap strongly with you in terms of content or subject area, or it might be that they overlap strongly in terms of methods. And either way, you'll have 2 blind peer reviewers, so they won't know who each other are and they won't know who you are either. They'll get the anonymous version of your manuscript. The peer reviewers are given peer reviewer training by us, and they're also given a peer reviewer guide. So there are a list of questions and criteria that they assess your manuscript against. And based on this, they either basically recommend the article for submission as it is, which is very unlikely, or they recommend the article for submission with some changes, or they recommend that we reject the article. And either way, they have to give a justification for that. Then the peer reviewers would send this basically reviewer form with the comments on your article back to us as the editorial board. And based on the feedback we get from the reviewers, we decide if we're going to send the article back to you for your feedback, for you to integrate the peer reviewer feedback, or if we're going to just reject the article or accept it as it is, which is unlikely. So in most cases, we would be sending the article back to you to make revisions based on the peer reviewer feedback. At this stage, the next step would be for you to integrate the feedback from the peer reviewers, and you'd have a couple of weeks to do that, or a few weeks to do that. And then you would send the article back to us. And then there's another kind of small review step at this stage, which is essentially just to make sure that the reviewer's feedback has been sufficiently integrated. If that's the case, then we would usually do some small cosmetic edits that kind of maybe to do with the layout to bring the whole kind of article and journal together. And then we would likely send you the article again to just accept any minor changes we might have made, but it doesn't usually require any further work from you at this stage. And then it's just a process of bringing the whole journal together and publication. And to give you a kind of idea of how long this process takes, so the submission deadline for manuscripts is the 18th of April, and submission is usually in September or October. So it takes a few months for that whole process to come together. How's that, Bella and Kate? Have I missed anything?
No, that was terrific. Thank you so much, Yamna. I was just going to say, and if you're kind of trying to follow along the circle here, not all the weeks line up because this is based on last year's, but I love the graphic, so I included it because I think it's quite thorough. But yes, just to emphasize again, so our submission deadline is in mid-April, and then the whole publication process takes about a few months into October, so next fall. And if you're in the Cambridge area, we do have like a nice little launch celebration that you would be more than welcome to attend. I'm going to say this and be an echo of myself, but if you have any questions about this, please throw them in the chat, or you can read more and find more information on our website. Alrighty then, I think, okay, so before we jump to the Q&A, I'm actually gonna stop sharing and go over to our guest speaker of the night, Lily, who has been so gracious, so kind to share some time with us to talk about her publication process last year. So Lily, like yesterday, I'm just gonna turn to you if you wanna give maybe a brief introduction to yourself and your paper.
Hi there, I'm Lily. I'm a first year PhD student at the University of Cambridge in the Faculty of Education. I'm currently looking at tactile picture books, but last year I did the MPhil in Arts, Creativity and Education, and we had a paper that was a lit review that we had to hand in that was 4,000 words. And I was looking at collage and in arts education, and so I submitted this lit review slightly edited to CERJ, and it went through the peer reviewers and it was accepted, and yeah, it went back and forth between me and the editor I was working with last year, who was Samantha Hulston. She was really helpful and the reviewers were really helpful, and I got a lot of feedback, and then yeah, it was like a very helpful and straightforward process, but the only thing that I found that was a bit strange to navigate was working out permissions for images, and I used a lot of picture book text in my lit review, so that was something new to navigate.
Yeah, and I think that raises a good point that whether you're looking at copyright items or ethical concerns, we do follow guidelines that we can speak about if you have specific questions, but it is like a paper by paper basis. Lily, thank you so much. So interesting. If I could ask two questions, the first being, when you submitted or having gone through the process, is there something you wish you knew at the beginning, or any advice you would give to people preparing a paper now?
Ooh.
I know, big question.
I'm not sure. I think advice I would give would be just submit, because I didn't expect I didn't really know what to expect from the feedback or from the process, but I found it really useful to have eyes on my project from outside of arts education. And yeah, I think the piece didn't change dramatically, but it changed quite a bit. So I was kind of glad to be able to revise it with someone. So I would say, I guess it's not really very profound advice, but listen to the reviewers and work with them because they have a lot to bring.
Yeah. Well, it's also like, I think a little different than what it can be like in your course program, whether that's a graduate program, doctoral program. It's just a different mode of engaging with your writing. So I think that's very wise advice. And last question for you, Lily, and this is a repeat from yesterday, which is, I know you spoke a little bit about your PhD. Could you share about perhaps how the article informed any work that you're currently doing? What is the future of this piece? Anything on that?
My lit review was a bit of a strange lit review. It was structured around a picture book because I was looking at collage and touch and haptics, and it was structured around a picture book that follows a little girl making a collage for her blind grandfather. And so it was kind of the lit review that informs kind of where my research has gone, because I'm now working on tactile picture books designed with blind and partially sighted children in mind. So it's kind of part of the trajectory, but kind of at the beginning.
Yeah. Just cool to see the overlap, I think. So, Lily, sorry to put you on the spot again. One last thing. Would you speak a little bit about the award? Because one of the reasons we invited Lily to speak tonight is that her paper won an award from last year's volume.
Yeah, it was very like unexpected and a nice thing to have from CERJ. It was just like a very nice additional thing, because it's been a very rewarding process. So and also like fun that it was for what felt like a very strange paper, like review. Yeah. I don't know if I can say anything very useful to it.
No, that was great. Thank you. Yamna, do you mind if I turn to you, because we, unfortunately, one of our guest speakers couldn't make it tonight. But Yamna, maybe you want to speak about Raquel's work and some of the advice she shared yesterday?
Sure, thanks, Bella. And actually, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that I hadn't heard Raquel's experience until yesterday either, at yesterday's event. And it was really interesting to hear about it. So Raquel also published with CERJ Volume 8 last year, and also won an award. And one thing I found really interesting about Raquel sharing her experience was how much it changed the direction of her PhD research. So at the point that she submitted, she was doing a master's, and she'd kind of done one initial interview, but she hadn't continued her data yet. And she submitted a paper to CERJ, and the editorial board last year basically told her that they wouldn't accept that form of an article, but if she wanted to expand it into a fuller research paper, then they would consider. So she actually did that, and she actually went out and did the research, did the interviews, which wasn't something she'd been planning to do yet. And in doing that, it kind of changed the direction of what she wanted to do within the PhD. So she ended up prioritizing the CERJ article because it was building up her research project that she wanted to then spend more time doing, which I thought was really interesting. And I think Raquel talked about some similar things to what Lily was saying, just the value of the peer review feedback in general, but she also emphasized the duration of the process. So I think Raquel was saying that this took a lot of time out of her. And one piece of advice she was giving to new authors was just to be aware of how much time and commitment it can take.
Yeah, for sure. But I think having both Lily and Raquel speak about their experience goes to show that it can be, what's the word? It can be tailored to your needs, right? Like it's not necessarily a standard way of engaging with this process. In the sense that there is a peer review, you are going to pass this on to different readers, but you can take what you want out of submitting. And I think that actually is really empowering. So thank you, Yamna, for sharing, and Lily for joining us So appreciative of your time. And Yamna, thank you so much for just throwing it in the chat. I was going to say, as you're an open access journal, you can read Lily's work. You can also check out Raquel's work. She sends her regrets that she couldn't join us tonight. But again, thank you for joining us. Round of applause for Lily, much appreciated. And now we're going to transition into a Q&A. So Lily, if you have to dash, completely understand. I was going to start off with a few questions we received in advance. And if you, Kate and Yamna and I will take care of those. But if anyone listening in has a different question, feel free to throw it in the chat and we'll address it. So to start, one question we received, and Kate, I'm going to pass it to you, is there an in-house writing style that one should aim for?
Good question. So Yamna did put the submission guidelines, I believe, in the chat. But in general, we stick to APA format. So there is a link to that in the on the website through the link that Yamna posted. But because we I guess welcome so many different kinds of work, literature reviews, research papers, like just so many different pieces that are formatted differently. I would say the overall structure is more open as long as grammatically and like stylistically it's in APA format. But again, reviewers and editors will help with that process as well. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
Exactly, yeah. Not one standard style beyond the nitty-gritty logistics of it all. We also had I think this kind of falls in that same question. We had an earlier inquiry from someone about whether they accept like multimedia content in a paper or just like different innovative forms, and enthusiastically we can say yes, we do, and then we'll work with you to figure out how that would best work in a published final form. But if you have videos involved or audio clips, please do not worry. Like that's something we're excited about and would work closely with you to incorporate. Alrighty then. So Yamna, our next question that we received in advance is, can an editor also be an author? Or can a peer reviewer also be an author?
Yes, to both.
Yay, short and sweet. Answer is that. Yamna, would you speak a little bit about when the peer review information will be released?
Sure. So I'll need to double check this, so Kate can correct me if I'm wrong, but we are planning to start recruiting peer reviewers this month, so at some point during February, and planning to wrap that up, so select the peer reviewers at some point in March or April. Is that right, Kate?
Yeah, you're right. I'm working on the call for reviewers right now. And something else to note is that it's so important for us to have reviewers from many different backgrounds and niches in education. So feel free to apply. You won't be editing your work, obviously, even though that is likely your niche. But you might be a big support to somebody else who is submitting. So please apply to be a reviewer.
Exactly. Oh, that's exciting too. Another question we received in advance, and I will echo once more that much of this information, if you don't catch it now, will be in the recording on our website. So no worries about that. One other question we received was, are there particular themes you are considering for this issue? Yana, hey, who wants to take it?
It is broad, so we are accepting submissions from all areas of education research. There are some themes that we're kind of pushing this year because we want to push for them, because we feel like they're not represented as much as we want them to be. So we're pushing for people using innovative methods. We're pushing for people talking about diversity in education in a post-pandemic world, and so on. But by no means the submissions have to align to any of these themes at all. So we are welcoming submissions all over. And if I can just kind of go back to the last question for a bit as well about the peer reviewer timeline. So once we have recruited the peer reviewers, there will be peer reviewer training, and that's expected to be in around May time. But I mean, peer reviewers will receive an email about that. And we will also tell peer reviewers in advance about the kind of window for still expect. So we'll probably tell them about 2 or so months in advance, but during this week, this is when we're going to be wanting you to do the reviewing of the articles.
Exactly. We want to be cautious and conscious of people's time and the workload that reviewing can take. So thank you for that, Yamna, for sure. George, great question here in the chat. You mentioned the peer reviewers use their own guidelines to judge the submission. Do we have access to those? Great question. So I think this just goes back to what Yamna was just saying, that actually all peer reviewers will be trained by us for exactly like what does it entail to be a peer reviewer. Are you asking more about like in submitting, whether you could have access to like what that training will entail?
I guess I'm just thinking, when I've been writing assignments recently, I've essentially got the mark scheme, or I've got the success criteria that I'm aiming for. So when I've written it, I can go back against those success criteria and kind of tick off, yeah, I did that. And I'm just wondering if that's the same thing. So I've read the submission guidelines, so I'm happy with that. I'm just wondering if I'm missing anything.
Very fair
when it goes
question.
to the next stage.
Yeah, of course. If anything is reassurance, and Yamna and Kate, feel free to hop in. I think or something that's so special about this journal is that we want to publish as many works as we can that we are excited about. So it's not necessarily that we are working under a cap of articles necessarily. So when it goes to the peer review stage, if you pass the editorial screening, which is following the submission guidelines, once you get to the peer review stage, it's not necessarily like an assessment so much as I think it is like a dialogue of this is what we're looking for, here are the revisions we suggest, here's like something that we think is like a critical issue that's missing, or a perspective that you might consider. Yamna or Kate, maybe you could speak on like what would necessarily entail a rejection at that stage. I feel like it might be something, yeah, I don't even know.
I think for something to be rejected, it would need to fall short on something in terms of, for example, clarity, which might be to do with the language, or in terms of relevance to the journal, in terms of logic of the argument. That generally a well-written article tends to be logical. In terms of originality and contribution, I think it is, like Bella said, we don't have a limit on the journal, and we are keen to publish as many articles as we can get. So whenever there's space for us to kind of work with the author to revise the article, improve it if that's what's needed, we are keen to publish as much as we can. You are right that there are peer review guidelines, and off the top of my head, the criteria are quite broad, so they're generally things like originality, clarity, and so on. And I don't see why those can't be shared. So I think it should be possible for us to put that on the website in the review section, and maybe we can pop out an email once that's been uploaded to the website.
Perfect. Thanks so much, George. That was a great question.
Thanks.
Terrific. If anyone else has questions, feel free to speak them aloud, put them in the chat. I'm trying to think of any others from yesterday that were interesting. Someone asked, sadly, it is free to submit. We do not pay for publication, but that's a sad reality of the academic world. But I do think it's a really, really fulfilling process. And you get this hands-on volunteer experience, like we're all volunteering our time. I think the reason we do it is because there's an exciting dialogue, and how special it is to be with other people who are in a similar boat as you, as early career researchers, with no matter what specific field you're working in. And so I think that's a cool opportunity to take advantage of.
One last thing I would add based on a question from yesterday was that there's no clear advantage to submitting earlier than the deadline, which is April 18th. So we won't be looking at the submissions until then. So it's not like you have a better advantage or you're disadvantaged if you submit on April 17th. So there's no rush to, but if you are finished, it's more than all right to submit now as well.
Exactly. Submit when you're ready, when you feel like it. And okay, I think you said it so well yesterday. It'll just sit in our little archive on our website, our submission form. Great. Oh, hello, Rian. Do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Bella.
Hi.
Is there a specific area in education that the journal sort of like highlights? Or
Yeah.
it could be about anything that is education related?
Great question. We had a very similar one yesterday, and the answer is it's so broad. As long as it's under the umbrella of education, we welcome it. As Yamna was saying earlier, we are keen to highlight innovative methods this year because we think they have been so long ignored or been hard to find like a publishing home. But if it's related to education in some way, please do consider submitting. And there's also, if you want to look on our website, I can pop the link in the chat, but you can see the past 8 volumes. And I think that gives a really good sample of like the different topics people have written on, the different types of papers they've submitted, how they've kind of taken the topic of education and explored it in different lenses.
Thank you. I guess I'm asking because you know how our degree is very specific, because it's so artsy, it's very specific. But yeah, thank you so much.
Of course, of course.
To give you, oh, sorry, Bella.
No, go right ahead, Kate.
To give you a bit of an idea, Raquel, who shared yesterday, wrote her paper about a financial literacy program in coastal villages in the Amazon. And Lily, who we heard from, wrote hers about collaging in a picture book. So there's such a wide range that we'll accept.
And they were both in the same volume. So there you go. Terrific. I noticed that someone just joined us. Catherine, hello and welcome. Catherine, we are going to kind of wrap up now, but if you want to hang on to the call, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I got stuck at school. I'm really
no
sorry.
worries. No worries at all. But to everyone else still on with us, thank you for joining us this evening. As I just said, we'll linger a little bit if you have specific questions, and then do keep an eye out in your inbox for a recording and a few more links.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you.